Is there further discussion? Representative Zephyr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the body, unsurprisingly, this is a deeply personal bill to me, not only as a trans woman in this legislative body, but also as someone who, prior to my transition, was an incredibly high-level athlete. I have 5 state championships in wrestling to my name. I was a multi-sport athlete across high school on several state-level teams. And I want to take this moment to talk first about, to me, this bill's fundamental misunderstanding of trans people and trans bodies. You know, it is incredibly difficult to be a high-level athlete. It is even more so difficult to be a high-level athlete as a trans person. Trans people make up about 1% of the population. There are 525,000 student athletes. If trans people were represented proportionally, we'd see over 5,000 trans athletes in the NCAA. If trans people were dominating sports, as the claims suggest, we would see an order of magnitude more. But we don't. We see 10. Because it is incredibly difficult. It is difficult because of physiological reasons. The International Olympics Committee set out a recent report highlighting how trans women often underperform compared to cis women due to our transition. We have testosterone levels that are lower than our cisgender women peers often. It is a struggle. I can speak to that personally as someone who went from a 5.5-minute mile pre-transition to a 9.5-minute mile post-transition. Bodies change, and trans people deserve to be in sports. I also want to highlight that this bill, to me, does not seem to be about fair competition because we see this applied across all sports. We have seen this applied whether it is, wrestling, the sport I'm in, whether it is chess. We've seen sports bans on fishing, and no surprise to this body, but if I attach a vial of estrogen to a fishing rod, it does not make me a better fisher. We've also seen in executive office EOs targeting trans people and trans sports. The president has called us dishonorable liars and said trans people are un-American. To me, that highlights what is underpinning a bill like this. It is at its face an attack against trans people at the place where they deem trans people most susceptible to public pressure. I also want to say that this bill is not wanted by many cisgender female athletes, and we see that at the highest level in sports, from coaches in the WNBA speaking for the inclusion of trans women, from members of the U.S. women's national team fighting for the inclusion of transgender women in sports. At the highest levels, these bodies have invited trans people in. And in fact, if we look at a state like Minnesota, which has had some of the highest participation of trans women in sports, they have also seen the highest increase in cisgender girls participating in sports as well. Because when we fight for all women in sports, trans and cis, we raise the tide for all of us. Lastly, I want to talk about the real harm that this bill can do beyond just trans people. When you talk about enforcement, one of the things that was brought up in committee was a reference made to an Algerian boxer in this Olympics who was accused of being trans and was later found to be cisgender and was accused and put under immense public scrutiny. That's what these bills do. They allow for heightened scrutiny of all bodies. And what we saw in a news report just today was a soccer coach asking all 11-year-old girls to, quote, show him their genitals to confirm whether or not they were abiding by policies like this. That is the real risk of a policy like this. It does not help our students. It does not help children. It endangers them and puts them at risk of real predators from causing harm. Please vote no.
Is there further discussion?